scent of wax and disinfectant permeated the chapel air, a lingering reminder of all that people prefer to forget. Mario Augusto da Silva lay in the light wooden coffin, the cheapest one in the catalogue, dressed in the same navy blue suit he had bought 20 years ago. The fabric was frayed at the sleeves, the outdated cut revealing the decade it was made, yet it was clean, impeccably clean, because Mario had always been like that, poor but dignified, invisible but upright. In the 7th, Roberta was typing on her cell phone with the expression of someone solving urgent problems, although she was only replying to trivial messages from friends asking about the new handbag she had posted on social media, the one that had cost 3 of her husband's salaries, and which he still didn't know existed. Across the room, Claudio adjusted his expensive Italian tie, checking his watch with the impatience of someone with more important commitments. Fernando yawned, sprawled in his chair, hands in the pockets of the jeans Mario had paid for 2 years ago, when his nephew had shown up saying he needed clothes for a job interview that never happened. It would be in poor taste to post a photo there, but she could save it in her drafts, maybe use it later, with a caption about family and longing. Her followers loved emotional content. She positioned the camera, adjusted the filter, and clicked. Twice. 3 times to be sure. Marcelo, the youngest, didn't even bother to hide his boredom. He was constantly on his phone, probably in some medical school group, chuckling softly at jokes no one else heard. And when the funeral home attendant entered to announce it was time to close, the 5 of them stood up as if ending a tedious work meeting, straightened their clothes, and began to head for the door. "At least it was quick," he said without looking back. "We didn't even have to pretend much." She paused, then added, with the casual tone of someone commenting on the weather, "Someone will have to clean that up, won't they? Imagine the state of it. You always have meetings, and you never close anything." They looked at each other, and then, almost in unison, they began to laugh. A light laugh, but charged with disdain. He must have died with nothing. Just condominium debt, probably. What none of them knew, what none of them could ever imagine, was that at that very moment, 300 meters away, in a cramped office on the 10th floor of a dingy commercial building, a 70-year-old lawyer was opening a yellowed-brown folder and reading for the 3rd time the will that would change everything, and that Mario, even in death, still had one last thing to say. At 14, he got a job as a maintenance assistant in a downtown commercial building. By 17, he could fix elevators better than older technicians. By 20, he was in demand in half a dozen buildings. He ascended and descended the dark shafts of the machines, carrying heavy tools, his small body contorting in tight spaces where light never reached. And as he worked, always alone, always silent, he learned something essential: that the world is made of people who go up and people who go down, and that he, Mario, would always be the one who fixed the mechanism but never used it. She had deep brown eyes and a smile that seemed to light up whenever she saw Mario pass by the storefront every morning. It took him 6 months to gather the courage to enter the store, 3 more to ask her out. And when they finally went on a date, a cheap cinema, shared popcorn, hands touching in the dark, Mario knew he had found the only person in the world who looked at him and saw more than just a small man with hands dirty with grease. Mario wept with happiness. He bought a second-hand crib. He painted the tiny room in the apartment he shared with 2 other technicians. He started working overtime. He planned to marry in March, as soon as he saved enough money for the rings. But in February, 2 men in suits appeared at the door of the boarding house where Mario lived. The family Mario never knew existed because Helena was ashamed of her own background and lived hidden in a simple job, escaping the suffocating expectations of an important surname. "You will disappear from her life," said the older man, a man with a grizzled mustache and a voice that cut like glass. "You will disappear. You will forget she exists, and you will leave this child alone. That he would take care of her, of the baby, that he worked hard, that he was an honest man, not some poor wretch stuck in an elevator shaft, for Helena herself, and that he, Mario, was nothing more than a shadow. So he disappeared. If they were happy, if one day by chance he would cross paths with that person on the street without knowing who they were, The money he received that day, that dirty money, born of cruelty and prejudice, Mario never spent. He invested it. He bought shares in a small unknown company. He bought a plot of land in a neglected neighborhood in the West Zone. And month after month, year after year, cent by cent, he continued investing. Not out of ambition, but because that money, somehow, needed a purpose. It needed to mean something beyond humiliation. When his siblings died, first Carlos, then Teresa, Mario took on the role of uncle. He went to all his nephews' and nieces' birthdays. He brought cheap presents, wrapped in newspaper. He sat in the corners of parties, ate the leftovers, left before becoming a nuisance. And when they needed him, and they always did, he appeared, with money, with help, with patience. Roberta had a credit card debt her husband couldn't find out about. 8,000 reais. Mario paid it, without judgment. Mario never asked for it back. The same unspoken thought, poor Uncle Mario, always trying so hard to be noticed. Until Mario understood something fundamental, he didn't need to be seen. He just needed to ensure that, when he left, the truth would remain. 2 days after the funeral, the 5 nephews and nieces entered the small, dusty office in the city centre. The place smelled of old paper and reheated coffee. The lawyer, a man with thick glasses, dishevelled white hair, and the tired expression of someone who has seen the human soul too bare, awaited them, seated behind a dark wooden desk piled with yellowed case files. He merely gestured towards the chairs in front of them. Jessica checked her notifications. Marcelo yawned. Then Claudio let out a nervous laugh. With all due respect, doctor, but a will for what? The man lived in a 2-room apartment in Madureira. He worked repairing elevators. He had nothing. I suggest, the lawyer said, with a calm that seemed rehearsed, that you listen until the end before drawing conclusions. Because Mario Augusto da Silva, the forgotten uncle, the invisible man who lived in the shadows, was not poor. Market value, 1,200,000 reais. Market value, 900,000 reais. Then stocks. Companies that had started small and grown into giants. Public bonds accumulated over 5 decades. Investments that multiplied with time and the patience of someone who understands that money doesn't shout. It just grows in silence. When he finished the list, 10 minutes later, though it felt like an eternity, the lawyer took off his glasses, cleaned the lenses with his old tie, and looked at the 5 nephews and nieces with something that could be mistaken for compassion. Mario Augusto da Silva's net worth, after taxes and fees, is approximately 18,400,000 reais. The 5 were petrified, their faces pale, their minds spinning so fast you could almost hear the gears grinding. He straightened himself in his chair, his lawyer's brain already working, already calculating. But anyway, I imagine the inheritance will be divided equally among us 5, correct? We are the only living heirs. Not exactly, he said. Along with the will, the lawyer continued, Mario left a letter, addressed to you. He instructed me to read it in its entirety, regardless of how long it took. Cleared his throat and began to read. Dear nephews and nieces. It's natural, human, greedy perhaps, but human. I always understood. And invisible people see everything, hear everything, know everything. The woman you keep in an apartment in Copacabana, an apartment you pay for with money you embezzled from the firm's clients. Small amounts, nothing that could be easily traced. But I traced it. I have all the proofs, all the transfers, and a complete file that will be handed over to the Brazilian Bar Association should you try to contest this will. Your husband thinks you still have money, that his company is still running. But you know the truth. You know it's bankrupt. You know about the debts, the maxed out credit cards, the loans from loan sharks. And you also know about the money you siphoned from the joint account to keep up appearances. The handbags, the clothes, the perfect Instagram photos. I have all the statements, and a copy will be sent to your husband should you try to contest this will. What you have are small cons, products you never delivered, services you never rendered, people who trusted you and lost money. Not much, but enough to constitute fraud. I have names, addresses, amounts, and proofs of everything. A complete report that will be handed over to the police should you try to contest this will. You accept money from companies to promote things that don't work. And worse, You accept money from companies that deceive the elderly, fake supplements, miracle cures, scams disguised as opportunities. I have screenshots, conversations, contracts, and everything will be sent to your sponsors and Procon should you try to contest this will. You falsified certificates, and last semester you bribed a professor to change your grade. I have emails, bank transfers, recordings, and everything will be sent to the course coordination should you try to contest this will. I have emails, bank transfers, recordings, and everything will be sent to the course coordination if you try to contest this will. Then he continued, and his voice became softer, sadder. Because you see, my dear nephews, I wasn't always alone. I wasn't always invisible. There was a time when I loved, a time when I was loved, a time when I was going to be a father. There was something in his eyes, perhaps tears, perhaps just fatigue, that made it difficult to continue. I left the woman I loved. I let my son grow up without me. By chance. An absurd coincidence, the kind that only life can orchestrate. He thinks his father was the man Helena married after I vanished. A rich businessman who died 10 years ago and left the family in destitution. And I discovered something that filled me with pride and pain at the same time. He is everything I never managed to be. He donates blood. He adopted a child no one wanted. "Oh, this is absurd!" he shouted, his face red. "This cannot be legal. We are blood relatives. We have rights." Enough to cover any expenses you may have incurred for my funeral, if you incurred any. To explain the story. Letters where I tried to be the father I never managed to be. That you understand that life is not measured by what we accumulate, but by what we give, by what we are when no one is watching. The 5 nephews and nieces were paralyzed, their faces registering a series of emotions so fast it was impossible to keep track. Shock, anger, despair, shame, disbelief. We are his blood. You can try, but as the letter made clear, any contestation will result in the disclosure of certain documents. Documents that, I imagine, you would prefer to keep confidential. This is a nightmare. This has to be a nightmare. How do we know he's really his son? It could be a scam. Someone who convinced the old man of something. Rafael Mendes da Silva is, without a shadow of a doubt, Mario Augusto da Silva's biological son. It wasn't in the letter. He said it personally the last time we met. To seek me out, to ask me how I was, to love me even just a little. But none of them did that. So now they will understand what it's like to be invisible, what it's like not to matter, what it's like to have nothing. The lawyer stood up. He picked up the folders. He looked at each of them, one by one. No one moved for a long time. To make him understand that we are family too. That's what you want to do. The same kind of thing Uncle Mario knew we would do. And at that moment, unbeknownst to any of them, 300 kilometers away, in a public hospital in Barra Mansa, Rafael Mendes da Silva was finishing his shift as a nurse, tired but smiling, because he had saved a life that night. And he had no idea that, in the next 24 hours, his own life would change forever. He had heard her dry cough penetrating the thin wall of their apartment in Barra Mansa. At 72 years old, she was increasingly frail, her body consumed by an illness that doctors treated with gentle words, but eyes that spoke the truth. There wasn't much time left. 2 cups. One for him, one for her. He put sugar in hers. She liked it sweet, always had, and took it to the bedroom. Helena was awake, sitting in bed, looking out the window, with that distant expression Raphael recognized. It was the expression of someone remembering, of someone living more in the past than in the present. Raphael didn't know, as he sat on the edge of the bed and held his mother's wrinkled hand, that a lawyer in Rio de Janeiro had already called his cell phone 3 times. He didn't know his life was about to turn upside down. He didn't know that a man named Mario Augusto da Silva, a name he had never heard in his life, had died thinking of him. He called back while waiting for the bus that would take him to the hospital where he had worked as a nurse for 19 years. "Yes, that's me." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then, the lawyer's voice, lower. Raphael stood still at the bus stop, his phone pressed to his ear, people passing around him like blurred shadows. Biological father. The words echoed in his mind, like a broken bell. There are things you need to know, things that will change your life. His whole life he had known that the man who raised him, Eduardo Mendez, a failed businessman, a cold and distant man, didn't love him as a father should. There had always been that void, that feeling that something didn't fit. That the man who had raised him, Eduardo Mendez, a bankrupt businessman, a cold and distant man, didn't love him as a father should. There had always been that void, that feeling that something wasn't right, afraid that the truth might be even worse than the life he knew. Have a seat, please. About the humble man who loved Helena, about the pregnancy, about the men in suits who drove him away, about the 43 years of silence, about the investments, about the hidden fortune, about the letters never sent, about the will. And when the lawyer finished, extending the envelope with the DNA test, Raphael didn't need to open it. He knew it was true. He felt it in his skin, in his gut, in his heart, which was beating so hard it seemed to want to escape his chest. My real father. For the man he never knew but who had thought of him every day. For the father who existed in the shadows, invisible, loving in silence. One for each month since you were born. He wrote them all. He told about his life, about his regrets, about you, about the man he hoped you would become. He saw the yellowed envelopes, stacked with obsessive care, each one dated with shaky but firm handwriting. The first letter was from March 1982, the last from June 2025, 1 month before Mario died. About the properties, about everything Mario had left for him. As if unsure whether he should continue. Jessica, the vulnerable one, Marcelo, the rational one. And in that gaze, they saw something that made them recoil. We're cousins then, family. He just looked at it, extended it in the air until Claudio lowered it, embarrassed. So happy that Uncle Mario finally found you. It's a beautiful story. And we wanted you to know that we always loved him. Always. The lawyer gave me this, Raphael said. Mario had hired someone to record the wake. He wanted me to see it. He wanted me to know exactly who you are. People react differently to grief. And you know that I know, so I'll save everyone's time. I work 60 hours a week at 2 jobs to take care of my sick mother, Raphael said, his voice low but sharp as a blade. My mother, who is Helena, the woman Mario loved, the woman you never mentioned, never visited, never cared about. I'm going to use Mario's money to give her the treatment she deserves, the comfort she deserves. And what's left, I'll use to help people who truly need it. Invisible people, like Mario was, like I've been my whole life. Mario left me a letter, the last one he wrote. Do you know what he said at the end? He said he hoped I would be better than him, that I wouldn't let pain make me bitter, that I would keep loving, even when the world didn't deserve it. I'm going to honor him by being exactly what he expected me to be. And you'll have to live knowing that you had everything, an uncle who loved you, who helped you, who gave his own life for you, and threw it all away, leaving the 5 of them alone in the empty lobby of a dirty building, with the weight of their own souls, knowing that he never forgot her, knowing that the son they had together had become exactly the kind of man she had always dreamed of. And she knew that the son they had together had become exactly the kind of man she had always dreamed of. People the world did not see, but who kept the world spinning. And all of them, each in their own way, learned something they would take to their graves, that there are things money cannot buy, and there are losses that no amount can compensate. He brought simple flowers, daisies, because they were cheap and beautiful, just as Mario himself would have liked. He knelt before the modest headstone and placed his hand on the cold stone. But now I do, and I'm going to make you proud, I promise. But when they leave behind a light that never fades,